It may not come as a surprise to those of you that watch my channel, but I'm quite into D&D. It hasn't always been the case. I actually only got into it relatively recently. I've always been into games. I've played PC games since I was a kid. I've learned to play Monkey Island on my dad's knee, but I never really got into the whole kind of tabletop role-playing thing. I always thought that was something that just wasn't for me. But actually, tabletop RPGs, D&D, in many ways are better than any video game you care to mention. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to tell you why. D&D is social. And I don't just mean you can put a headset on and chat to your friends, although you can play over the internet if you want. I mean, for those of us that play around a table, it means giving up an evening of a weekend, meeting up around somebody's house, getting the dice out, getting the books out, getting the character sheets out, and just being together for quite a long period of time with your friends. You can get snacks out, you can get drinks out, it's a lot of fun. Sometimes we're chatting for a couple of hours before we even start playing because we just want to hang out. D&D gives you so much more freedom. Now the phrase, "why can't we talk to the monsters?" has been basically a meme in gaming circles since Doom. But there's something in that. One of the things that we really love about big RPGs is the way that they allow us to talk our way through situations. We can talk to our enemies. You can use your persuasion skill in all kinds of RPGs. D&D allows you to do that to another level. D&D allows you to improvise these kind of situations. Okay, real world example. We're clearing out a bandit lair. Our dwarf cleric boots open the door. There's a couple of guys in there. In one round, we move in, we kill everybody. There's one person left who's the captain. Now in a normal video game, he would fight to the death. He wouldn't really have an option. The DM rolled to see if he would run away, but he didn't. But what's more, he's a mercenary. So rather than kill him, we hold a dagger to his throat. We get him to give us the layout of the entire lair, everybody we might be facing, where the treasure is, gives us a full map, and then we pay him enough money that he decides to join us for the rest of the encounter. You couldn't do that in a video game, unless it was scripted by the developer, because every single character in a video game has to have time and effort put into scripting, voice acting, if there's going to be a voice for this character, all these sorts of things. And it means that you can't have the same level of freedom that you could have on a tabletop. And that freedom extends to just everything. It extends to the characters that you can be. It extends to what you can do. If you can physically think of something that's possible to do, then you could do it in that situation. If you want to try and climb a building, you can try and do it. And it might work, you might not, but it might. And the moment you realize that, the moment you're sitting around a table for the first time and you're rolling dice and you realize you can try to do anything, it's so powerful. D&D is immersive. Now, this might sound a little strange to those of you who are used to sitting down and looking at the graphics of a world and really getting involved, but the theatre of the mind is so much more powerful when you let it be. Partly because of the freedom that you have in your actions within the world and your interactions with other characters. You really can begin to embody the character that you're playing so much more than you can even in the most detailed RPG. I mean, your Skyrim character, for example, what are they really like as a person? What are their opinions on things? Do you know? You might have decided in your head, oh, my character is from a working class background and feels this about the nobility and feels this about distribution of wealth. I don't know, maybe they're a communist. But role-playing around a table, D&D, other tabletop RPGs, kind of almost force you to come up with at least some kind of character concept. And because you're not bound by the rules of a game, yeah, you're bound by kind of the rules in terms of what your character's able to do physically and what their stats are and stuff. But in terms of what they look like, what they're wearing, the equipment they use, the way that they use it, even the way that they move, the way they're animated. All of these things would need to be set in stone years before a video game was released, because they'd all need to be storyboarded, designed, animated, textured, written, scripted, etc, etc, etc. None of that is necessary. You can just say, my character has a feather in his cap, and he does, all of a sudden. My wizard, for example, in the campaign that we play, we found a bunch of mushrooms growing in a cave, and I decided, you know what, these mushrooms, these are going to be part of my character. And they actually had some kind of magic stats to them. They, some of them allowed for the creation of a healing potion, that sort of thing. But I took them and I cultivated them, and I made them a part of this character. So he started hanging mushrooms from his hat. He has a little mushroom cavern now in the basement of where the party lives. And I couldn't have done that in a video game. D&D allows for a greater variety of story. In gaming, generally, you kind of end up being the chosen one, whether you want to be or not. I mean, we see this in media everywhere. We see it in Harry Potter, we see it in Star Wars. There's this character that lives in a world, they think it's normal, and then suddenly it turns out they have this amazing destiny that they must fulfill, and they have these powers that they learn throughout the story, and they grow and they change. I'm referring to Luke here, of course. That kind of story is almost inevitable in gaming because you usually have a protagonist character. Think about Mass Effect. Protagonist character, normal world, finds out that they're special. Shepard's the only one that can interact with these Prothean artifacts. It's been a while since I played the first Mass Effect, but I think that's right. Dragon Age. You're one of the few that can survive the Darkspawn and one of the last Grey Wardens remaining. You're always the last, the chosen, the only, and that kind of gets tiring. What you can do in a role-playing situation around the table is that you can have stories that are about your character. You can have your own personal little moments, but you can also have stories that aren't really about you at all. And stories where you just sort of, your character happened to be there and they are the person that is best equipped to deal with this situation, but they're not the child of the evil wizard who's threatening the town. They're not secretly imbued with these amazing powers. They are who they are, and they do what they do because that's what they do. Fundamentally, you're almost definitely going to play a hero, or at least a mercenary, someone who will do a good thing for money, if not necessarily for morals. But the difference between just being the people who are there to help and being the central chosen one, the most powerful person in all creation, it's really refreshing, actually. It's kind of nice not to be the chosen one, if you're used to that in so much media. D&D is infinite. A video game, no matter how good it is, even the most content-rich RPG, like The Witcher 3, or the most in-depth MMO with hundreds of expansions and dungeons to explore and quests to complete, even those will eventually run out of content. Tabletop, that's never going to happen. You might play through all the adventure books that you own, you might run the starter kits, you might do The Lost Mine of Phandelver, you might do The Tomb of Annihilation, you get all the books out of the way, but you don't even need those to begin with. You can just create your own stories, your own worlds, your own characters, and just go with them. And they can go on forever. Now, that's not to say that those books and stories and so on aren't great, but the real beauty of this is that it can be improvised or it can be written. You can play the same story with 10 different groups of people or come up with something fresh for each person, each group. D&D is something that I'm super passionate about, and I'm just really glad that I have this channel to share some of that passion. If you're already playing, fantastic. If you're not, and I've somehow convinced you to try it, that's amazing. Please let me know. I'd love to know about that. And I'd love to know how your game went as well. If you did try it, come back and tell me. If you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up is always appreciated. It's really nice to know that people are enjoying the kind of content that I'm creating. And you can always subscribe if you'd like to see more videos coming up in the future. Until then, I'll see you next time.